Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane. I'm your host, Shane Fordham, with all the shameless sports takes. Now, looking at this Eagles team throughout minicamp, according to the reports, there's quite a few guys in OTAs right now who are doing very well. So I'm going to be highlighting my Eagles on the defensive side of the ball, who I think could be in for a breakout year this year. Now, starting with Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt, I think, is going to definitely have a breakout year this year. He should be starting on the other side, on that other edge spot across from Nolan Smith. I think Jalen Hunt is in for a definite breakout year this year. He's doing very well according to all reports from OTAs. He's playing with the runs. It seems like he is the favored starter at that position. I honestly think Jalen Hunt is going to have a year where he'll at least have 8 to 10 sacks this season. I'm convinced. I mean, you look at this guy last year. I mean, this is a guy that got better as the year progressed. Like, he made his best plays towards the end of the season in the playoffs. Like, he rose to the occasion in the playoffs as a rookie, or as a first year sort of player, getting his first year playing on the field. Like, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Both of his sacks, all of his sacks, came in the playoffs. One of which he got in the Super Bowl on Patrick Mahomes. He got a half sack in the Super Bowl. He got 1 sack in the NFC Championship. Like, this guy continually got better as the season progressed. He came more into his own as the season progressed. When the season was on the line, when the Eagles needed him to make a play, he made a play. Like, he definitely is a guy who he has all of the tangibles to be really an elite pass rusher in the NFL, based on his size, his skill, his ability, his violence with his hands, his quickness off the ball. Like, he has all the tangibles to be an elite pass rusher, but I think he's also collecting the intangibles to be an elite pass rusher as well throughout this offseason. I mean, he said it himself during a press conference. He knows that, it's not just the physical gifts that can make someone an elite rusher or an elite D lineman. It's also the mental gifts. It's the focus, it's the concentration, it's the anticipation of what the O-line is going to do prior to the snap of the ball. So I definitely think he is collecting those mental skill sets, because what better place to work on those skill sets than against the Eagles O-line, the best offensive line in the NFL. He's definitely collecting the intangibles as well as the tangibles throughout this offseason by having to line up across from Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata every day. He is actively working on his skills and his ability, his technique, on 2 of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. One of which is a future Hall of Famer in Lane Johnson, if not the best tackle in the NFL right now. He's going up against Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata every day in practice, and is continuing to stand out. If he's standing out against the likes of Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, there's no doubt he's going to give any other set of tackles in the NFL a problem. Because he's not going to face this is the hardest competition he's going to have to face. He's not facing any competition that is better than Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata throughout this season. It doesn't matter what team they're playing. You can say he'll see tackles that are maybe as good, that are on that level of Lane Johnson. Going to have to see Penei Sewell this year. Going to have to see Laramie Tunsil this year, twice a year. Guys like that. Like, you can say, he's going to have to see competition that is at that level, but he's not going to have to see anybody that is better than Lane Johnson. If Jalen Hunt can get past Lane Johnson, if Jalen Hunt can get past Jordan Mailata, he can really get past anybody. If he can give Lane Johnson a run for his money in practice, There's no one there's no tackle in the NFL that will be able to say they manhandle Jalen Hunt. So Jalen Hunt at this young age, at this stage in his career, he is already making an impression and earning a starting job by going against Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata every day in practice. There's no doubt he's in for a breakout year. He's in for a breakout year. There's not going to be many offensive linemen this year that are going to be able to stop him and protect their quarterbacks from Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt is going to have at least 8 to 10 sacks this year for sure. At least 8 to 10. He's going like it's honestly this whole Eagles team. It's a team that makes itself better in practice prior to the season. Like to me, it's not a coincidence that we have legit Pro Bowlers on each side of the football because they're going up against each other in practice every day. This Eagles team is a team that constantly makes itself better through the competition. Like, it's not a coincidence that Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham were as good as they were, future Hall of Famers, but that they were also going against guys like Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks every day in practice. It's not a coincidence that we had all pro Pro Bowler guys on both sides of the ball. They were making each other better. It's not a coincidence that Jason Kelce was as good as he was, having to go against Fletcher Cox every day in practice. Sometimes having to see BG loop around in practice. It's not a coincidence. Like, this is a culture in Philly. Like, this is honestly a part of the culture in Philly that has made it part of what has made it such a winning program, because of that iron sharpens iron mentality, that competition mentality, making each other better. So Jalen Hunt is just going to be one of the latest examples of that. Having to go against all pro, future Hall of Fame guys like Lane Johnson, you know, someone who is making more of a name for himself in that regard, and Jordan Mailata. It's not a coincidence that we are going to see him have a breakout year after having to see guys like that every day in practice. Someone else who's going to benefit from that this year is Keely Ringo, another Eagles defensive guy who I think could have a breakout year this year. He was more of a rotational guy last year. He's definitely the favored starter this year to play across from Quinion Mitchell. Keely Ringo is going to be in for a breakout year as well, I believe. Because he is also playing against great competition every day in practice. Already coming off of a standout year last year as a rotational guy, you know, obviously being in the mix with Quinion Mitchell and Darius Slay, he is playing against some of the better offensive counterpart positions in the NFL as well every day in practice. He's having to put up with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith every day in practice. A.J. Brown, a top 3 receiver. Devontae Smith, who plays like a top 10 receiver, would be a receiver 1 on any other team. Having to play those guys every day in practice is making him better. Already was a standout guy last year. Also, where he was in a position where he was also able to get mentorship from Darius Slay and James Bradbury. The same mentorship Quinion Mitchell got is the same mentorship that Keely Ringo received. Quinion Mitchell just had more playing time. He earned his starting spot fair and square. He just had more playing time. Keely Ringo was learning the same things that Quinion Mitchell was learning from the same people. This year, he's going to actually have an opportunity to show what he has learned, to be able to develop on the field, to develop his skill and technique more on the field. He's going to have more of an opportunity to show who he really is as a player, who he has grown to be. That's another guy who is doing very well in OTAs, but it doesn't surprise me. If Keely Ringo can be a standout player against the likes of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith every day in practice, there's no question he won't be able to handle some of the other standout receivers that we're going to see this year as well. There's no question he'll be able to hold his own against the likes of a Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb. Like there's no question, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like there's no question he won't be able to hold his own against receivers, against those type of receivers when he's doing it already every day in practice against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. He's also seeing Jahan Dotson, a slept-on receiver, in my opinion, who I believe is also helping to make Kelee Ringo a better defensive back, a better cornerback. Kelee Ringo is going to be is in for a breakout year, in my opinion, as well. He's getting the minutes now. He's playing against some of the top guys in the NFL. He's getting better through the competition. He is getting better through the competition. He was able to sort of learn and observe watching Darius Slay, having James Bradbury in his ear, seeing what Quinion Mitchell did last year. Now he's going to have the time to actually prove what he can do and develop his skills on the field. So I definitely think Kelee Ringo is in for a breakout year, but someone else who I think this applies to is Cooper DeJean too. Cooper DeJean is interesting to me because obviously he's doing well in practice, but Cooper DeJean is interesting to me because the fact that he was a defensive rookie of the year candidate last year was obviously as valuable as he was to the defense last year. The fact that he could have that sort of output on the season and production in the season when he really missed all of training camp last year in the offseason, that's special to me. Like Cooper DeJean was able to be the Swiss Army knife that he was this past season when he really didn't even have as much of an opportunity during training camp as he is this year. So if he could do that, missing training camp last year, imagine what Cooper DeJean could look like this year, going through a full OTA, going through a full training camp schedule with having more of a role on the defense. Imagine what Cooper DeJean could look like this year after going through a full training camp under Vic Fangio. And this was the crazy thing is too, like that was his first year in a Vic Fangio scheme. So first year in a new scheme, missed training camp, had to really start from scratch at the beginning of the season, earning his way. Like imagine what he'll look like this year, where now he has a year under his belt in the Vic Fangio scheme. He's playing under the same scheme now. He would have had a full training camp under his belt. He's not having to start from scratch at the beginning of the season, earning his spot. He's coming into the season already having a solidified starting spot, a confirmed starting spot by Vic Fangio. He's doing so good in the offseason. Vic Fangio basically said, I don't really care what scheme we're in. Cooper DeJean is going to be on the field. Whether it's as a nickelback, whether it's at corner, Cooper DeJean is going to be on the field. If he's doing that well this offseason, imagine what sort of leveled up, upgraded version of Cooper DeJean we're going to see this year. He's getting reps at corner. He's also getting reps at safety. He's getting reps at nickel. Like Vic Fangio is truly embracing the Swiss Army knife culture of Cooper DeJean, the Swiss Army knife nature of Cooper DeJean, allowing him to roam and do different things. Because that's the type of guy we saw last year. A guy who could blitz, a guy who could be a key run fit. He can tackle, he can hit, he can cover. A guy who can stuff Derrick Henry at the line and dump him on his back, but also a guy who can catch a pick six in the Super Bowl in the biggest game of the season, biggest game of his career, possibly the biggest game of his life. Can pick Patrick Mahomes, but then also run it back for six. Putting the squad, getting points up on the board. Like, that's the guy we saw last year if that's the guy we saw last year in a new defensive scheme, in a situation where he had to earn his minutes from scratch, miss training camp, imagine what version of Cooper DeJean we'll see this year, where he's comfortable. He has the trust and the trust from his coach to be able to be more of a roamer on defense, playing different positions. I think Cooper DeJean is definitely in for a breakout year. Could possibly be one of the best DBs in the NFL. He looked like one of the best DBs in the NFL last year. Imagine what he'll look like this year, having more experience. Someone else who I think falls under that category in terms of in for a breakout year possibly is Andrew Makuba. I think we as Eagles fans, we automatically thought the worst when the Eagles traded CJ Gardner-Johnson. But Howie Roseman, he basically apologized to all of us, or not even apologized, just said, hold on, let me cook for a second. Brings in the perfect replacement for CJ Gardner-Johnson. A guy who is physical, who is physical in the run, but can also cover. Like, I think it's interesting that Andrew Makuba, like, he brings in a guy like Andrew Makuba who really helped make Texas the best secondary in college last year, arguably. He brings in the perfect, like a guy who is literally the perfect replacement for CJ Gardner-Johnson, just a perfect swap out. He only up just with more of an upside in Makuba's case because he's younger and is cheaper being a rookie. You know, I think this position battle between Makuba and Sidney Brown is going to be interesting because, I mean, I really don't think it's going to matter who gets more playing time over the two just because of the bright spots we saw. I mean, just the positives we have from both guys. I mean, we clearly saw Andrew Makuba's tape from this past college season, but then we also saw the bright spots that Sidney Brown displayed on the field when he was in rotation, you know, when he was healthy, when he was playing. So, I mean, I think Andrew Makuba should be the favored starter just because to me it seems like Andrew Makuba is more of a coverage guy. You know, you need a guy who is better in coverage at that free safety position. You know, I think Makuba, I think he flies around a little better than Sidney Brown, in my opinion. I think the physicality is on par with each other, but I think that's what gives Makuba the edge is his ability to cover, his ability to be more of a ball hawk DB. But if Sidney Brown were to beat him out for the starting job, that means Sidney Brown clearly showed something in practice to Vic Fangio to think that his coverage ability is up there. His coverage ability is good enough to start over Makuba. And if that's the case, there should be no complaints in regards to Sidney Brown being on the field. Like that means his coverage ability has improved. Because right now, at least in my opinion, it seems like Sidney Brown is more of a strong safety, you know, but regardless of who starts, they're both going to play just because that's how good these guys have shown to be throughout this offseason, especially. So it's really good. It's gonna be a dynamic, healthy rotation of safeties, you know, back there in that umbrella set coverage that Vic Fangio loves to run. You know, it's gonna be interesting to see who ends up playing the most, who ends up getting the most reps next to Reed Blankenship in the backfield. But regardless of who plays, it's not gonna matter because I think they're both going to play, and I think they are both going to be able to do their job and hold their own in their given assignment in this defense. Based on what we have seen, I think they are both capable players, and it's really just a matter of really just pick your poison at that point. Like, you know, which one do you want to see sort of thrive, you know, in this defense? I really don't think you can go wrong either way. Me personally, I'm leaning a little more towards Andrew Makuba because as of right now, I see him as a bit more of a coverage guy than Sidney Brown. But definitely in for a breakout year for sure. Very easily could be a defensive rookie of the year candidate this year. 100%. In this system, the perfect system for a DB like Makuba, with his specific skill set that he has in being a ball hawk guy and being a guy who isn't afraid to hit and be aggressive and embrace that contact as a traditional old school sort of DB, I think he could definitely be a defensive rookie of the year candidate for sure. But someone else who I think could possibly be a defensive rookie of the year candidate, possibly if he gets those minutes, is Ty Robinson. People are really impressed with Ty Robinson, with what they've seen from him in practice so far. I'm really excited about it just reading about it. I mean, this is a guy who he has not only the size to be an elite defensive tackle in the NFL, but he also has, it seems like he has the mindset as well. Like, he not only has the ability to overpower interior offensive linemen, but he also has the ability to outwork them in terms of hands. Like, if you've seen this guy's tape, if you've seen his tape not only in college but also in camp or in OTAs rather, his hands are extremely violent. His hands are extremely violent, and it's not only his initial hand movement and placement that can catch a center or an offensive guard off guard, that can catch an offensive guard off guard, but it's also his counter movements as well. Like his hand movements are quick, but he's also quick at countering as well in case the first move doesn't work. Like the way he rips, the way he can extend his arms and snatch, and just create separation between himself and the blocker. It's honestly scary. Something Jalen Carter even pointed out himself. If a guy like Jalen Carter is giving you props in practice, like the vets before Jalen Carter gave him props a couple of years ago as a rookie, that as Eagles fans, that should only mean good signs to us in regards to Ty Robinson. That should only give us a promising feeling, the fact that Ty Robinson is getting the love that he is in practice. Ty Robinson could really be a problem. Like, he's a similar size to Jordan Davis, but it seems like he has more of a maturity in pass rush situations than Jordan Davis did at that point in his career when Jordan Davis was a rookie. I mean, Ty Robinson was really just an overall one of the most slept on picks in the draft, in my opinion. I mean, just a guy that really went under the radar, someone who people definitely didn't know how he ended up an Eagle because of just how promising his stock look and how promising his draft profile was heading into the draft. Ty Robinson can be a problem, but the fact that Ty Robinson is being is standing out as much as he is playing as well as he is, going against Pro Bowl guys like Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson every day in practice, the fact that he is doing that, having to see guys like Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, Tyler Steen, who was really supposed to be a starter this past season over Mekhi Becton if he hadn't have gotten hurt in training camp last year. The fact that Ty Robinson is standing out, going up against guys like that every day in practice, there is no question he will be able to do the exact same thing against other interior linemen that he'll see this year. He's not going to see, assuming he gets the minutes and is in that rotation, he's not going to see many interior linemen this year that are better than Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Two Pro Bowl guys. Guys who were Pro Bowlers in their first year starting. In their first or second year starting. Like, Ty Robinson could really be an issue on this Eagles D line. Could really be a problem for opposing offensive lines. That's probably one of the guys I'm most excited about, just because he has all the potential in the world, but he's also putting that potential to use. He's putting that potential to action. He's making that potential into reality so far at this point in the offseason. But then obviously, someone else on that D-line who has all the potential in the world and has already kind of started putting that potential to reality is Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is going to be, I mean, Jalen Carter is no question is going to be the leader of this defense, or the elite guy of this defense, the heart and soul of this defense as years go by. You know, I mean, Jalen Carter last year was one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL in his third year. In his was it third? Yeah, Jalen Carter in his third year starting, he was already one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. Already one of the best. And it's or second year starting rather. What's crazy to me is that he was as good as he was last year, and apparently is still learning the position of D tackle. Like Vic Fangio said, Jalen Carter is still he's still learning that position. He's still learning that position. He's not totally set in that position yet. The fact that he is still learning that position and was as good as he was last year, it's crazy. Like it's honestly crazy to think about what he could look like this year. What he could look like this year at this point in his career, as early as it is in his career. It's hard to say. It's hard to say Jalen Carter. It's hard to say. It feels crazy to say Jalen Carter could play better than he did last year. But you also have to think about last year, he was as good as he was, not even really knowing the position that well. 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. If you're looking at Jalen Carter, that's another guy who continually gets better as the season progresses. Jalen Carter really saved the Eagles season last year, if you think about it, against the Rams. Without his 2 sacks against the Rams, the Eagles could have possibly went home. The Eagles season could possibly end early against the Rams in the playoffs if Jalen Carter doesn't make the plays that he does. Save the Eagles season. But he showed up when the Eagles needed him most. He showed up when the Eagles needed him most. He showed up on the stat sheet, rather, when the Eagles needed him most. Because Jalen Carter has been showing up all season last season. He may not have always popped up on the stat sheet, but he was making huge factor plays that allowed the Eagles to win games. If it wasn't a tackle for loss, if it wasn't a sack, it was a pressure on the quarterback that caused him to throw the ball away, as opposed to hitting a receiver that might have been open. If it wasn't a TFL or a sack, it was a knockback that Jalen Carter got on the offensive line that maybe flushed the quarterback out of the pocket towards, one of the edge guys like Nolan Smith, or allowed Jordan Davis to make a play. Like if he wasn't on the stat sheet, he was making plays that allowed other guys on the defense to make plays. Flushing him out to, a guy, flushing the quarterback out of the pocket to where Zach Bond was able to chase him down and make the play. Like Jalen Carter, if he wasn't making the play himself, he was setting up his teammates to make the plays. He was setting up his teammates to make plays. If he wasn't making plays himself, he was setting up the plays for his teammates to make. He was putting his teammates in a position to make plays. This year, you're telling me that was a Jalen Carter that didn't know the position that well, was as effective as he was at the defensive tackle position? Imagine what Jalen Carter will look like this year now that he has a better handle on the position. He's more comfortable in the position. He has another year under the same defensive scheme under Vic Fangio. Jalen Carter could easily be the best defensive tackle in the entire NFL this year, possibly the best defensive lineman as a whole in the NFL this year. As the way he was able to show up in the playoffs the way he did, coming off of the regular season that he had, imagine what he will look like this year coming off of a championship, coming off of having that confidence of a champion, coming off a Super Bowl winning year, having another year in this Vic Fangio scheme, coming off of an offseason where he was basically standing out against an all-pro interior line in Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, having that development both physically and mentally. Imagine what Jalen Carter could look like this year. We're talking about a defensive player of the year candidate. The Eagles could really have 2 defensive player of the year candidates this year in Jalen Carter and Zach Bond. Because Zach Bond, I think, can easily replicate this year what he did last year. So can you imagine an Eagles defense that would have 2 defensive player of the year candidates? It definitely could happen. This could be the only defense in the NFL that would have 2 defensive player of the year candidates. Jalen Carter dominating up front and Zach Bond dominating at the linebacker position. I'm really excited to see what Jalen Carter does this year, at this point in his career, coming off of the season he had last year. But those are my Eagles players to look out for in terms of a breakout season. I think it's going to be, I know you got to take OTAs with a grain of salt because, it's just helmet and shorts, but the fact that they are displaying this early, there's not much reason to doubt that they won't be able to replicate that in training camp, but it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this offseason goes. I'm really excited for this overall season from the Eagles and what we could see from these key guys on defense. I'll do another episode for the offense next time, but that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and I'll be back later on with more shameless takes.